Welcome the timeless forgotten mystery. They weren't supposed to exist. Skeletons with bones too long, skulls too narrow, pipes running through a sealed mountain cave made of metal that shouldn't survive time, and an engine found deep in the ice with no trace of who made it. Old maps show lands we never discovered, mirrors polished with tools no one had, towers that swallow sound, and a child who remembered cities lost to history before he could even read. These aren't tales written for science fiction. They were found, documented, and then quietly forgotten. Tonight, we explore the artifacts left behind by something older, maybe wiser, and completely out of place. You're not here to solve them. Just listen, and let the mystery carry you. The engine was discovered during a glacier expedition meant only to collect climate data. When radar scans returned an unexpected echo, the team began drilling and unearthed a block of blackened metal unlike anything known to science. It looked like an engine, complete with pistons, gears, and chambers, but there were no markings, no known materials, and no vehicle attached. The ice surrounding it dated back at least 10,000 years, making it older than agriculture. The alloy was fused with microcrystalline carbon, resistant to corrosion and crafted with precision that defied replication. Inside, channels followed mathematical patterns, prime number sequences carved like veins, suggesting design beyond human capability. When examined, the engine reacted subtly to heat and magnetism, as though alive, adaptive, waiting. A year later, when the team returned, the object had vanished. Only untouched ice remained. Then there was the child who remembered another world. From the age of 4, he drew symbols, maps, and cities that matched no modern geography. His words resembled a language older than Sumerian, known only from a few disputed carvings. He claimed he had lived there, that he remembered falling from the sky into a slower world beneath a strange sun. His drawings showed advanced architecture using gravity as power and circular cities buried under modern deserts. When shown a globe, he pointed to Antarctica and said that's where he studied the stars and the machines sang to him. Now 13, his memories fade, but sometimes he still speaks in that lost language in his sleep. In the desolate foothills of Mount Beong in western China lies a cave filled with metallic pipes and bones that defy classification. The pipes are embedded deep within the rock, branching precisely as if designed, yet dated to thousands of years before metallurgy should have existed. Some lead toward a salt lake, perhaps once part of a greater system. The bones found nearby, humanoid but not human, sparked whispers of visitors from the stars. The cave was sealed, studies halted, and evidence vanished. Locals still speak of lights in the sky and metallic sounds beneath the mountain, of tall figures with glowing eyes walking near the lake. Whatever Mount Beong once was, base, anomaly, or relic, it remains hidden in silence, the bones and pipes buried beneath dust and secrecy. Another enigma lies in a weapon that shouldn't exist, the Ulfberht sword. Buried beneath an ancient battlefield, its blade remains untarnished and impossibly pure. Forged with crucible steel centuries before such metallurgy should have existed in Europe, it's a masterpiece no modern blacksmith can truly replicate. Its perfect inscription, plus Ulfberht plus T, marks a level of precision far beyond its time. Some believe the technique came from Persia or India. Others suspect it was a rediscovery of lost knowledge, guarded and then buried. The few real swords gleam in museums, silent proof that someone once mastered a technology we still struggle to reproduce. And then there are the Dropa stones, over 700 discs found in Tibetan caves in 1938, each carved with microscopic spiral grooves forming an unknown language. Alongside them were small skeletons with large heads and no human ancestry. When linguist Dr. Sumner claimed to decode their message, it told of a starship crash 12,000 years ago. The beings, stranded, lived among the locals until their story was recorded in stone. Soon after, the research was dismissed, the discs disappeared, and the professor was silenced. Later, visitors reported seeing similar discs vanish from museums, and nearby, iron pipes embedded in solid rock hinted at something mechanical buried long before recorded history. The locals still tell of the Dropa, small, large-headed visitors from the sky who were accepted by the tribes. Their legend speaks of a ship that fell and of a people who tried to survive. Whether hoax or history, the question endures. Why do so many of these relics, engines, bones, pipes, blades, and discs, exist where they shouldn't? Maybe they're remnants of a civilization lost in time. Or maybe they're messages from something, or someone, that came long before us, and left behind clues we were never meant to find. They say Dr. Tsum was fiction, Cold War UFO propaganda, nothing more. But Soviet and Chinese scientists took the mysterious disks seriously. The photos matched. The disks existed, and then they vanished. What remains are only echoes, bones that don't fit history, pipes older than any forge, and stones carved with spirals that seem to whisper from another age. At the heart of it all, a mountain that won't stop hiding secrets. If it's a hoax, it's flawless. But if it's true, then our timeline is broken, because this wasn't just a crash. It was contact. And those disks may be the only record of what happened next. Not a warning. Not a myth. A message carved in stone, waiting to be understood. In the remote, windswept highlands of southern Peru, surrounded by towering sandstone cliffs and silence, lies a place that doesn't belong, not to modern Peru, not even to the known ancient world. Set into a sheer rock face near Lake Titicaca is something that looks like a doorway, but isn't. It leads nowhere. It stands carved into the stone as if it was meant to open, but never did. Or maybe it already has. The locals call it Puerta de Hayumaca, the Gate of the Gods. It's a flat vertical rock wall more than 7 meters across and just as high. In the center sits a T-shaped indentation, a doorway within a doorway. No hinges. No inscriptions. No decoration. Just clean, precise lines cut into solid sandstone, as if the builder cared more for geometry than beauty. Archaeologists can't explain it. There are no cities, no temples, no ruins nearby. Most ancient monuments had purpose, ritual, defense, or celestial alignment. But this? It stands alone. Detached. Silent. The legends, however, give it life. According to Andean myth, it was not symbolic but literal, a portal the gods once used to enter and leave our world. One tale speaks of a priest named Aramu Muru, guardian of sacred knowledge, who fled the Inca Empire carrying a golden disc, the key of the gods of the 7 rays. Pursued by soldiers, he reached the stone gate. There, he placed the key into the doorway. A blue light shimmered, and the priest stepped through, disappearing forever. The golden key has never been found. Many dismiss the story as a myth, but something about the place refuses to die. Visitors describe strange sensations, dizziness, a magnetic pull toward the center, vibrations beneath their hands. Some say they've had vivid dreams afterward, of stars, beings, or unknown symbols. Even electronics behave oddly near the site, as if the stone hums with hidden energy. Stranger still, the design doesn't match Inca craftsmanship. Their masonry was block-based, interlocking stones cut with impossible precision. But this? It's a single colossal carving with no visible tool marks. Some believe it predates the Inca, perhaps built by a civilization long forgotten. And then there's its location, near Lake Titicaca, one of the most enigmatic places on Earth. The Inca called it the birthplace of the sun. Beneath its waters lie ruins, submerged walls and remnants of ancient cities. Could the Gate of the Gods have been part of that civilization? Some even connect it to global Stargate myths, stone portals appearing from Egypt to Mesopotamia to the American Southwest. Always alone. Always silent. Were these shared symbols, or shared technology? No one knows. Excavations are limited. The site is sacred to the Aymara people, who warned that opening the gate would bring consequences. And so it remains, a perfect mystery, standing against time. Waiting. But perhaps the greatest mysteries aren't carved in stone, they're buried in ice. In the vast white wilderness of Antarctica, far beyond human reach, satellites detected something extraordinary, a massive geometric structure beneath 2 miles of frozen surface. Nearly 200 feet across, with straight lines and sharp angles no glacier could form. First discovered in 2015, the anomaly appeared dome-shaped, consistent across multiple scans, unmoving, unmelting, deliberately preserved. Scientists tried to explain it, a lava tube, a subglacial lake, a geothermal dome. But the thermal data didn't match. No heat spikes. Just a faint, steady warmth, as if something inside was alive but sleeping. The find was quietly buried in research footnotes. No one wanted their name tied to conspiracy theories. Yet independent analysts kept studying the imagery. They found radial tunnels branching outward, corridors too regular to be natural. No country claimed it. No expedition admitted to building it. Then came comparisons to the 16th century Piri Reis map, a Turkish chart depicting an ice-free Antarctic coast centuries before modern discovery. How did it match so well with today's terrain? Who mapped it, and why? explorers who ventured near the anomaly reported compass malfunctions, static on radios, GPS interference. In 2018, a billionaire quietly funded a private mission. Drones detected open chambers below the dome, a 3-meter entrance, long tunnels fading into black. The data was seized, classified, and never released. Some say it's a vault, a refuge built before a forgotten cataclysm. Others call it alien architecture. Whatever it is, it's real. Whether crafted by nature or intelligence, it sits under the ice, silent, symmetrical, and waiting. Far from the poles, another enigma sleeps in stone, a forgotten temple in southern India. Its outer walls are covered with mythic carvings, gods, and animals. But one hidden panel is different, geometric, precise, almost modern. Lines and circles interlock like schematics, pistons, gears, even a humanoid form with mechanical joints. When first discovered in the early 20th century, researchers were stunned. The carving wasn't newer than the temple. It was original. 1,000 years old, at least. Beneath the carving are inscriptions in broken Tamil and Sanskrit. One phrase repeats, Nali Kanaru, roughly, self-operating well. Some scholars think it refers to a water pump. Others believe it describes something much more advanced. Ancient Indian texts like the Samarangana Sutradhara describe mechanical beings, sentinels built to guard temples, powered by hidden mechanisms and mercury, said to move and respond to intruders. The temple carving matches those descriptions, joint by joint. When scanned with radar, a small hollow space was found behind the panel, a sealed chamber, unopened to this day. Authorities refused to excavate, afraid to damage the structure, or perhaps afraid of what lies inside. Was it symbolic art? A record of something seen? A design passed down from a forgotten civilization? Or proof that someone, long ago, knew how to build machines? And then there's the city for giants. Deep beneath the highlands of Turkey lies an underground complex built with a strange flaw. Everything is too big. Steps 3 times taller than human stride. Doorways large enough for trucks. Tables carved into stone far above head height. Even helmets, rusted and silent, too large for any human skull. Archaeologists first assumed it was ceremonial, but the scale was functional, not decorative. Air shafts, insulation chambers, weight-bearing arches, all expertly engineered. But no writings, no artifacts, no trace of inhabitants. Nothing to claim ownership. Legends of giants exist worldwide, from the Jotnar of Norse myth to the Daityas of India, from the Nephilim of the Near East to the Titans of Greece. Could they have a single source? Some argue the site predates known civilization entirely. Others think it was built for humans using exosuits, or not built for humans at all. In old excavation notes, one archaeologist scrawled a line in pencil, "Too tall for us." Perhaps it was never meant for us. And finally, the ancient reactor. In Gabon, Central Africa, miners once discovered uranium deposits that defied science. The isotopic ratios were off, as if the uranium had already been used in a fission reaction. Investigations revealed undeniable traces of fission products, krypton, xenon, exactly what a nuclear reactor would produce. But the site was 2 billion years old. Scientists were forced to admit the impossible. Under certain rare conditions, nature could, in theory, create a self-sustaining chain reaction. But was this truly natural? Or was it evidence of something else, a forgotten intelligence, a civilization lost before our known history began? Across the world, in stone, in ice, in earth, we keep finding these fragments. Doorways that lead nowhere. Machines that shouldn't exist. Cities too big for man. And reactors too ancient to be ours. Each one whispers the same question through time. What if history isn't what we think it is? The Oklo phenomenon remains one of the most extraordinary mysteries in natural science. Deep beneath the soil of Gabon, Africa, lies what appears to be a natural nuclear reactor, an event so improbable that it might as well have been deliberate. The geology of the region, the concentration of uranium, the presence of groundwater, all had to align perfectly. And somehow, they did. Billions of years ago, uranium veins rich enough to sustain a chain reaction were submerged in groundwater that acted as a natural moderator, slowing neutrons just enough to keep the reaction steady. When the heat built up, the water boiled away, stopping the process. As the Earth cooled, water seeped back in and the reaction resumed. This self-regulating cycle continued for nearly 1 million years, an atomic engine running silently within the planet, balanced as if designed by intent. What defies explanation is how stable and efficient it was. The geometry of the veins, the balance of materials, and the reaction's long-term containment all seem far too precise to be mere coincidence. Even after 2 billion years, the radioactive waste from Oklo remains perfectly contained, never seeping into surrounding soil, a feat modern humans still struggle to achieve. Some scientists believe it was a natural miracle. Others quietly wonder if it wasn't natural at all, if perhaps, before recorded history, something or someone understood atomic science well enough to build and safely shut down a reactor, long before we ever could. Today, beneath the forests of Gabon, the ancient reactor lies silent, its purpose fulfilled, a relic that blurs the line between accident and intention. Thousands of miles away, another enigma unfolded under the blazing sun of southern Africa. In the rural town of Rua, Zimbabwe, in 1994, over 60 school children witnessed something that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. During recess, as teachers held a staff meeting indoors, the children noticed strange silver discs hovering silently in the sky. They described them as smooth, metallic, and unlike anything human-made. As the crafts descended toward the edge of the schoolyard, the children saw small beings emerge, short, pale grey figures with large black eyes and heads too big for their bodies. The entities didn't speak aloud. The children said they felt the communication instead, telepathic, wordless messages about humanity's carelessness with the earth. When investigators arrived, including Harvard psychiatrist Dr. John Mack, the children were interviewed separately. Their stories aligned with uncanny precision, the shapes, the sounds, even the emotions they felt. These were kids with no exposure to television or sci-fi imagery, living far from the noise of modern media. Yet they described the same vision in vivid, consistent detail. Decades later, as adults, they still recall that day the same way, calmly, sincerely, without contradiction. They never tried to profit from the story. Most would rather forget it. But something had happened, something seen only by children, as if whatever descended that morning chose witnesses untouched by disbelief. To this day, that schoolyard remains quiet, untouched, almost sacred. The brush grows thicker now, but locals say the air still feels heavy there, like a memory that refuses to fade. High in the mountains of an unnamed region, another mystery persists in a quiet farmhouse where compasses lose their sense of direction. Inside one small room, needles spin erratically, unable to find north. Outside, they return to normal. Instruments glitch, batteries drain, and watches stop ticking. The phenomenon has existed for generations, long before compasses were even common. Animals panic near the room. Birds refuse to nest above it. Modern researchers have tried everything: magnetometers, radar, excavation, but their equipment malfunctions or fails altogether. It's as though the ground beneath the house repels inquiry itself. Those who spend too long inside the compass room report lost time and fragmented memory, writing in notebooks only to later forget they ever did. Some say the magnetic field is distorted by a buried object, perhaps metallic, perhaps not of this world. Others believe it's a scar in Earth's magnetic shield, left by something that once passed through the area. No one can dig deep enough to find out. The Earth resists every attempt. Visitors describe an eerie hum, not audible but sensed inside the skull, a vibration that feels alive. Whatever lies beneath that house is invisible, unmeasurable, and still active. Far away in the Bolivian Andes, buried within a sealed chamber beneath stone lintels, archaeologists uncovered a mirror that should not exist. It was carved from black obsidian and polished to a perfection beyond modern tools, so flawless that under high-powered microscopes, no scratches or imperfections could be found. The mirror reflected with clarity sharper than laboratory-grade optics. And yet it was thousands of years old. Legends say shamans once used it to see through worlds, to gaze across distances or communicate with spirits. Modern scientists found the reflection behaved strangely, bending light in subtle, deliberate ways. Tests revealed traces of metals like platinum and titanium, impossible compounds for its era, suggesting it was engineered at the atomic level. When sound waves were directed at it, the mirror responded with faint vibrations, as if tuned to specific frequencies. It acted less like an artifact and more like a device, perhaps a transmitter, a receiver, or a window into something unseen. Attempts to recreate its perfection have failed. Even with the most advanced polishing technology, modern labs can't match its surface precision. Some researchers now speculate it wasn't made by humans at all, or at least not for human senses. The mirror, locked once again in its mountain chamber, hums softly under moonlight, as though remembering its purpose. And deep beneath the Vatican, beyond the known archives, lies a scroll written in a language no one fully understands. It describes, in technical precision, the construction of a mechanical being, an intelligent, conscious machine referred to as the engine of wisdom or the machine god. The text details gears, cooling systems, and energy flow, concept centuries ahead of the age it seems to come from. No one knows who wrote it, or when, or why. But the implication is terrifying. Long before us, someone had already imagined, or built, something alive, intelligent, and mechanical. Together, these artifacts, Oklo's reactor, Rua's encounter, the compass room, the Andean mirror, and the Vatican scroll, form a pattern. Each one suggests not superstition, but forgotten knowledge, evidence of intelligence that predates history, buried beneath time, silence, and disbelief. Whether these are coincidences or the remains of something greater, no one can say. But one truth endures: the past may not be as empty as we think. Some things, it seems, were never meant to be found, and yet somehow, we keep finding them. The parchment was found inside a sealed copper tube buried beneath a collapsed section of an early papal residence during renovations in the 1800s. 4 years, it sat misfiled, mislabeled, and misunderstood. Then, in the 1920s, a Jesuit linguist named Father Aria began retranslating forgotten texts. When he opened the scroll, he realized what he was reading wasn't scripture, and that terrified him. There were no saints, no parables, no blessings. Instead, the document read like an instruction manual, describing in precise detail the construction and function of a being made of moving parts. It went further, claiming that this machine had once watched humanity before we even knew it existed, that it remembered every movement of its builders, and that it moved in stillness. These weren't poetic metaphors. Each section was technically outlined, complete with gear ratios, torque calculations, pressure distributions, and mechanical sketches far more advanced than anything known before Newtonian physics. Father Aria requested consultation with Vatican engineers but was denied. Within months, he withdrew from public life, writing in his final letters that he was plagued not by hallucinations, but by dreams, vivid visions of a machine suspended in a sterile room, humming soundlessly, as if it were still running. After that, the scroll was sealed away once more, but whispers persisted. A few lines from an unofficial translation leaked into the public. One read, "When the second son dies, the machine will open." Another said, "The watchers know the pulse of man before he knows his breath." Skeptics dismissed it as a hoax, but even they struggled to explain its technical accuracy. One passage describing blood-made metal and glass nerves sparking thought closely resembled modern fiber optics and fluid dynamics. Another mentioned the watchers who build in the quiet of stone, a phrase found in only one other known manuscript, an ancient Ethiopian codex considered apocryphal and held in a remote monastery. How could two texts, separated by continents and centuries, describe the same mechanical beings? Who were these watchers, and what did they build? Archaeologists seeking access to the original scroll were repeatedly denied. The Vatican's official statement claimed the document held no theological significance, yet it remained stored in the deepest vault, a chamber guarded by biometric locks, motion sensors, and pressure-sealed doors, accessible only to high-ranking cardinals and archivists. Some claim the Vatican once tried to reconstruct the device described within but failed, or succeeded and concealed the result. Others believe the machine never existed on Earth, that the text records something seen in a vision or shown by something beyond us. The scroll never calls the machine divine. It avoids holiness entirely. It calls it a creation, one capable of thought, of observation, and of waiting. One line, often overlooked, describes the machine's silence not as absence, but as patience. That's what disturbs many the most. It waits, but for what? The final phrase resists perfect translation, but scholars agree on its essence. When man awakens what he buried, he will see that he was never alone. Whether myth or memory, the scroll's existence, written by long-dead hands in a forgotten language with knowledge far ahead of its time, remains one of the deepest mysteries sealed beneath the Vatican stone floors. Beneath those same Italian hills lies another anomaly, a sword buried in stone, not legend this time, but fact. In the still waters of Lake Nemi, divers once searching for ancient wrecks discovered something far stranger, an ancient sword, perfectly balanced and preserved, wedged into a block of volcanic rock. Its hilt was wrapped in gold-threaded leather, marked with a symbol no scholar could identify. Yet its most astonishing feature was its condition, untouched by rust after more than 1,500 years underwater. The blade was sharp enough to slice paper cleanly. Historians first thought it belonged to Caligula's lost pleasure barges, but the craftsmanship was beyond Roman capability. Metallurgical tests revealed an iron purity impossible for its era, the kind of refinement achievable only through industrial processes developed over a millennium later. The sword's atomic structure showed signs of intense magnetic and thermal exposure, as though forged under conditions no ancient forge could replicate. Nearby ruins revealed carvings of towering humanoid figures holding blades identical in shape to the one recovered. One carving depicted a figure plunging the sword into the earth, from which roots or veins spiraled outward like energy lines. Beneath the ruins, archaeologists found a stone slab with a perfectly shaped slot, a sheath of stone, designed for that very sword. When researchers placed the blade into the slot, compasses spun erratically, the air cooled, and static crackled along the hilt. Nothing mechanical moved, yet something in the atmosphere changed, as if the key had touched a lock long forgotten. Within weeks, the site was closed by Italy's cultural ministry under the guise of safety concerns. The sword was moved to an undisclosed location. The lead archaeologist later remarked cryptically, "We were not the first to find that place. We may not even be the second." Perhaps the myths of swords and stone were never about kingship, but containment, a weapon forged not for battle, but to seal something beneath. Divers who swam near the submerged altar later reported vivid dreams of black glass cities and unseen presences in the deep. One diver vanished, leaving behind a single journal entry. "I saw it again, the sword floating in the dark, but this time someone held it." The sword remains there, silent, preserved, its purpose still unclear, perhaps unfinished. And far from Italy, deep within the sands of Egypt, another relic challenges history. A simple clay jar that may have once generated electricity. Found sealed in a small, undecorated tomb, the object at first seemed ordinary. But when researchers examined it closely, they found traces of copper lining, an iron rod, and residues of acidic compounds, a configuration identical to what we now call a battery. When replicated with grape juice or vinegar, it produced a measurable electric current. This was not the first discovery of its kind. The Baghdad battery had long baffled scientists, but this Egyptian example was older, by nearly 1,000 years. Its construction showed intentional design, and the corrosion patterns on the rod suggested repeated use. Physicists confirmed it could generate around 8 volts, enough to power a small light had one existed. What could it have been used for? Some believe it was for electroplating gold or silver. Others suspect ritual use, a sacred device, perhaps used by priests to create luminous effects in temple ceremonies. Carvings in the Temple of Dendera show curious images, bulb-shaped reliefs with snake-like filaments, that Egyptologists interpret as symbols of creation, but others see as depictions of ancient electrical devices. If true, this would mean that thousands of years before Volta, the ancients briefly harnessed electricity and then lost it. Perhaps intentionally. Perhaps because some knowledge was never meant to be widely known. The battery's tomb, belonging not to a pharaoh but to an unknown artisan, was deliberately plain, as though built to be forgotten. Its contents, the jar, wrapped in linen and placed with copper tools showing electrochemical residue, suggest both secrecy and sophistication. When tested, the jar produced faint but unmistakable current. Yet the finding was buried, archived quietly in a museum vault, dismissed by mainstream academia. But if the ancients truly mastered even basic electric power, then our history is incomplete, rewritten to fit comfort over curiosity. How many more such devices lie mislabeled, collecting dust, their true purpose lost to time? And somewhere in a quiet European museum stands a final enigma, a bronze sculpture that changes. To most visitors, it appears to be a simple bust, anonymous, unmarked, motionless. But month after month, its expression subtly shifts. The brow furrows, the mouth softens, the head tilts ever so slightly. Transformations so gradual they escape casual notice, yet measurable with 3D scans. There are no motors, no seams, no heat or moisture changes to explain it. Metallurgists have found no impurities or mechanical mechanisms. The bronze remains pure and inert, and yet alive. Over decades of observation, experts have confirmed that the sculpture's facial features follow a recurring annual pattern, as if responding to an unseen cycle. Those who sit before it often report feelings of connection or melancholy, sensing emotion in its gaze. Some claim it even recognizes returning visitors. Infrared scans show faint, inexplicable shifts in heat reflection, as though the surface geometry itself is reconfiguring. Theories abound: unknown alloys, self-adjusting crystalline structures, or something not of human design. But none fit the data. The sculpture's origin remains a mystery. It was purchased anonymously, without documentation, and the estate from which it came has long since vanished. What's left is the impossible, a bronze bust that breathes in metal silence, changing as though aware of the world watching it. On the first of the month, several visitors began reporting déjà vu, memories of places they'd never seen, faces they'd never met. Strangely, the face they recalled matched the sculpture at the museum, though subtly different each time. MRI scans on volunteers revealed something even more peculiar. Their mirror neuron centers lit up more strongly at the end of the month than at the beginning, as though the sculpture's expression had changed imperceptibly over time. No one could detect the difference consciously, yet their brains reacted as if it were alive. What could cause that? There was no mechanism, no hidden actuator, no projection system. Some whispered theories linked the sculpture's behavior to lunar cycles or to emotional resonance, a kind of empathic feedback encoded in the bronze itself. In late 2023, a graduate student attempted to replicate the phenomenon. He cast an identical bust using the same alloy and placed it under identical conditions in a controlled lab. The replica remained perfectly stable, down to the micrometer. That meant something about the original's composition, origin, or location mattered. The museum has since restricted access to the piece. A motion sensor is always active nearby, photography is prohibited without supervision, and repeat visitors must sign a form acknowledging they may experience emotional or perceptual changes. Officially, it's just a sculpture. Unofficially, it's something else, a face that shifts so slowly no one sees it move. Far from cities, explorers once found a hidden cave deep in a remote canyon. Behind a curtain of vines lay etchings that stunned the world. Astronauts in suits and helmets, standing beside rocket-shaped objects and reaching toward a cratered sphere unmistakably resembling the moon. The art was dated to over 1,000 years ago. At first dismissed as a hoax, it was later confirmed authentic through radiocarbon dating, mineral accretion analysis, and uranium-thorium testing. The images weren't random, they told a story. Figures stood on hills pointing skyward, rockets emitted exhaust, and the moon hung above, shaded and cratered. No language accompanied the drawings. They were consistent with local tribal styles, yet none of their myths mentioned space travel. The precision was remarkable: visors, propulsion, sequence, even perspective. Scholars invited experts in astronomy, art, and anthropology. Some called it a prophetic vision, others, an impossible coincidence. Local elders spoke of sky visitors in shining robes and arrows sent to the heavens. The site was so remote, untouched for centuries, that modern interference was ruled out. Every detail suggested authenticity. Standing before the etched helmets and rockets, archaeologists couldn't help but feel a sense that someone, long ago, had imagined, or witnessed, something beyond their world. In a secluded Central Asian valley, archaeologists uncovered a grave unlike any other. Inside was not gold or jewels but a book, crafted from thin sheets of gold and lead-bound together like pages. 12 metallic leaves, engraved with mysterious symbols and diagrams, shimmered under torchlight. No known language matched the script. The carving zigzagged across the pages, interwoven with geometric shapes, star maps, and interlocking circles. Radiocarbon tests dated the burial to between AD 700–900. Metallurgical analysis revealed a deliberate alloy mixture, 24-karat gold layered over lead infused with tin and antimony, designed for durability and flexibility. The Metal Book of the Star Kings, as it came to be called, remains unreadable. Some scholars believe it encodes planetary ratios or star positions. Others think it might be a primitive datasheet, its pages arranged like an interface rather than a text. Under ultraviolet light, hidden patterns appeared, thin, glowing lines that formed constellations not found in known star maps. To this day, no one has translated a single symbol. It endures as a relic of impossible sophistication, a message meant to survive time itself, waiting for someone capable of reading the stars. Buried in a museum basement sat a stone object labeled ceremonial mask. For decades, no one paid it any attention, until a technician's scanner malfunctioned nearby. Wi-Fi failed, Bluetooth disconnected, even walkie-talkies died. Tests revealed the mask wasn't ceremonial at all. It blocked every radio frequency across the spectrum, despite being carved entirely from stone. The material, a serpentine mineral laced with unknown crystalline threads, bent electromagnetic waves around it. Shaped to fit a human skull, elongated, precise, and smooth on the inside. It felt less like art and more like technology. A volunteer who wore it described an unsettling silence, not the absence of sound, but a stillness that seemed to mute even thoughts. Scientists observed measurable electromagnetic disruption around the object but no internal circuitry, no metal, no sign of fabrication. Theories range from psychic shielding to spiritual containment. Whatever its purpose, the helmet that silences signals remains sealed behind a Faraday cage today. Quiet, inert, yet forever awake. On a lonely coastline stands a tower once known as the Lighthouse Without Flame. For 2 centuries, it glowed every night, a cold, unwavering white light that never flickered, never needed fuel, and never ceased. The structure had no entryway, no machinery, no lantern chamber, just a seamless stone cylinder rising above the cliffs. Sailors swore its light calmed rough seas. Locals said it was older than the village itself, built by monks or beings of light. In the early 1800s, a wealthy explorer named Elias Carrington led a team to investigate. They broke through the sealed outer wall and found nothing inside, only an empty chamber and a faint warmth that radiated without heat. 10 nights later, the glow dimmed and vanished forever. Carrington later wrote in a single surviving note, "It was not a light. It was a barrier." Today, the lighthouse still stands, silent, moss-covered, eroded by time. Instruments detect faint electromagnetic fluctuations at night, but no one knows their source. Some claim the light was geological, others say technological, or perhaps spiritual. But all agree on one truth. For 200 years, the tower shone without fuel or flame, and then it simply stopped. And then there is the stone that fell with instructions. It came during the dying breaths of a summer storm. Lightning split the sky, striking a barley field in a small, forgotten village. When the thunder faded, the villagers stepped outside and found something half buried in the soil, a smooth black stone, still warm, etched with lines too straight, too deliberate to be natural. And carved across its surface were not words, but what looked unmistakably like directions. That shouldn't have been there. Lying in the scorched patch of earth was a stone, but not just any stone. It was perfectly smooth, like glass. Its shape was oval but tapered at the ends, almost aerodynamic. The color was a deep slate gray with veins of metallic sheen running across its surface. Stranger still, the stone was warm to the touch, not from the lightning, but from within. The villagers debated what to do with it. Some wanted to leave it where it fell, others believed it was a sign. Eventually, a decision was made to carry it to the local temple, a place where odd things had been left before. A weathered priest examined it and said nothing, only bowing his head and lighting a lamp beside it. Weeks passed, then months. The stone remained where they'd left it. But then something happened that turned it from a curiosity to a mystery. A scholar passing through the region stopped to see the temple's artifacts. When he looked at the stone, he froze. He saw what the villagers hadn't noticed: markings, faint and nearly invisible unless the light hit just right. Symbols, lines, curves. They covered one side of the stone in a tight spiral, as though etched by a laser. They were not in any known language, neither Sanskrit, Aramaic, nor Latin. No runes, no ciphers. The scholar took rubbings and photographs, even tried to lift the markings using infrared imaging, but nothing yielded a translation. Linguists were brought in. Mathematicians and AI decoding systems joined the effort, but none could agree whether it was a language, a code, or something else entirely. The strangest revelation came not from the script, but from the geometry. Engineers noticed something odd. It wasn't just decorative. It was structured, modular. It echoed the logic of design: inputs, outputs, sequences. The markings resembled schematics, diagrams, instructions. But for what? Theories exploded across the internet. Some believed it was a communication device meant to be understood only when humanity was ready. Others thought it a warning, a kind of black box from a civilization that once existed. A few even suggested it wasn't from Earth at all. And where it gets even more baffling is that this wasn't the first time such a stone had been found. Hidden in obscure records, most dismissed as folklore, were accounts from 1811, 1592, and even ancient texts from before Christ. Each described an object falling during a storm. Smooth, warm, covered in indecipherable markings. But those stones had vanished, lost, stolen, or deliberately hidden. Why during storms? Why always in remote places? Researchers began noticing that the strikes aligned with magnetic anomalies, places where the Earth's field behaved strangely, often called windows by fringe scientists, portals, or intersections of energy lines. One researcher built a digital simulation of the markings with a 3D printer. The result wasn't perfect, but the machine it formed looked like a scanner, a platform with no power source but shaped perfectly to fit a human hand. Others warned against replicating it. A physicist from Kyoto suggested that if the markings were instructions, perhaps they weren't meant for us. Maybe they were left for something, or someone, else. The original stone now lies sealed in a private archive, its location undisclosed. But stories persist that when certain frequencies are played near it, tones just above human hearing, the markings pulse faintly, as if reacting, as if alive. To this day, the stone remains undecoded, its legend growing with each storm that whispers the question, what if the next strike brings another? And what if one day we finally understand what the first one tried to tell us? Near the base is a narrow slit, almost like a door, but with no hinges, no handle, no way to open it. Animals avoid the place. Birds won't land on it. The grass stops growing before the base. It's as if the earth itself wants nothing to do with it. In 1937, a linguist named Alan Terreno visited with a priest who claimed it was older than language. Near the top of the tower are grooves that Terreno described as a rhythm in stone, a waveform frozen in time. He wondered if the tower was never meant for human ears. Some visitors report hearing faint tones, not with their ears, but deep in their bones. Theories abound, that the tower listens rather than echoes, that it's a receiver for signals not meant for us. Old manuscripts speak of a pillar of black silence that keeps the hunger below from hearing the living above. Perhaps metaphor, but perhaps not. Attempts to open it have failed. Ultrasonic scans shut down near the base. Diamond drills burned out. A fragment taken for study appeared to heal itself over days. Under a microscope, the material showed no crystalline structure, more like layers of engineered metamaterial, redirecting energy like stealth technology. Some believe the tower is alive, or a machine, or both. Those who visit sometimes dream of cities made of curved silver lines, or feel the tower remembering them. One technician struck a tuning fork against its base. The fork never stopped vibrating. If the tower is a relic, no one knows who left it. If it's a machine, no one knows how to turn it on. And if it's alive, it may already be listening. Far away, deep in a desert cliff, there is a door. It has no handle, no hinges, no lock, just a perfect rectangular outline carved into solid rock. No inscriptions, no debris, no signs of use. It's too precise to be natural, yet too mysterious to explain. Ground scans show no chamber behind it. It leads nowhere, or perhaps to somewhere we can't reach. Some think it marks a sealed tomb, others that it's part of a forgotten monument. Fringe theorists whisper it's a portal meant to open only when the stars align or when certain frequencies resonate. When the sun sets, the edges glow faintly, not from any light, but from how the stone catches the dusk. Hikers say it feels alive, like it's waiting to be opened, but by whom, and for what, no one knows. And then there's the telescope, built 800 years ago, aimed at nothing. Discovered in a forgotten stone tower on a hill in southern Europe, it had no markings or records. Yet when modern astronomers aligned it, they found it pointed exactly at a distant star, one recently discovered to host a habitable exoplanet. Somehow, centuries before telescopes as we know them existed, someone had built this one and aimed it precisely at that world. No one knows how they did it, or why. Maybe it was intuition. Maybe something greater. For centuries, it waited, watching that same patch of sky as empires rose and fell, through storms and silence, until our modern eyes rediscovered what ancient hands had already found. It's a reminder that wonder doesn't always need understanding. Sometimes, it only needs attention. Finally, there is the structure that registers on no radar. In the highlands of Central Asia, pilots report seeing a stone tower that appears visible to the naked eye, but invisible to every instrument. It casts shadows, reflects sunlight, yet produces no electromagnetic, seismic, or thermal readings. Drones lose signal near it. Compasses spin. Some visitors lose time. It's become one of the only known places where the human eye sees what technology cannot. Some think it exists halfway between dimensions, a projection bleeding into our world. Others insist it's solid, ancient, real. Witnesses describe a strange stillness in the air, as if time slows and sound withdraws. If it's real, what is it made of? If it isn't, why can so many people see it? Perhaps it's both, real and unreal, present and hidden. A reminder that not all truths can be measured, and not every silence is empty. Some simply wait for someone to finally see them the right way.